It's been a tough year for Esorfranki, and I suppose it's been felt in varying degrees by the whole sector, the whole construction sector. For you, it appears to have been particularly tough, though. Why is that?
We had, besides the normal things that everybody else is saying, about protracted delays and squeezed margins, we had a couple of loss-making contracts that didn't do us any good. So we had, lower revenues, lower margins, and then some losses as well.
Are those contracts out of the pipeline now?
Those contracts are out of the pipeline. It was one of the last contracts that we were doing on Gautrain between, on the geotechnical side, between Pretoria Station and Hatfield, exacerbated by a very wet, rainy season, which didn't do us any good. So that sort of really happened in the sort of middle of last year. And then also our N4 contract that we were busy with up on between Brits and Rustenburg for Bequena. That also didn't go particularly well for us.
And the losses you took, 90 million rand, was that from those two contracts in particular?
From those two contracts, yeah.
You've also spent 7 million rand in restructuring costs over the period. What have you done to the business? How are you positioning yourself in a tough market like this, but with expected recovery ahead?
Well, that really happened at the end of our interims, or the middle of last year. That was revolved around the geotechnical industry, really streamlining it, getting it right-sized, so there were retrenchment costs and things like that. That market seems to have stabilized now. In the latter half of last year, after the World Cup, that market halved. There was a real hiatus in the market. We seem to be out of that now. It looks as if that market is stabilized for us, and in fact, not too bad going forward in terms of where we're sitting with our order book at the moment.
What sort of costs have you taken out of the system with this restructuring?
Well, basically the geotechnical, before we had two companies. It was Esorfranki and Frankie Africa. They're now going to operate as a single entity. They're already housed together up in Johannesburg. We call it Johannesburg, at the Wynberg offices of Frankie. So it's now Esorfranki Geotechnical. And down in Durban, they will operate from a single premises, but the premises still have to be modified slightly to house everybody. So. And also down in KwaZulu-Natal, that really underperformed last year. The work levels have picked up there, and there's also a lot of activity on the east coast of Africa that they tend to manage as well. So we see there are going to be some efficiencies there. And also in terms of our divisionalisation, we're operating now as Esorfranki Construction, and then Geotechnical, Civils and Pipelines form divisions of that main construction company. So we should get some savings in costs there.
Well, talk to us about some of the contracts you have on hand and some of the ones that you've signed up for and you're waiting for to come through.
Yeah, at this point in time, as we, I think our annual report says our order book was at about 1.45 billion. We now actually have 1.9 billion, so we've picked up work since year end. We've got a nice road contract on the K71 R55, which is something over 200 million. Road contract. We're working in for road agency Limpopo.
This is for the civil division.
This is the civil division. We've got an 80 million rand contract. We're up at Kusile. We have a 300 million rand contract up there, as well as a 30 million rand left of geotechnical work that we have to do on Kusile. On the pipeline side, we have the remainder of our BG3 contract, which represents about 160 million rand this year. We've also picked up the phases 2, 3 and 4, which all came out as one tender on the N4, which is the next phase of the N4. Bills are structured differently. We priced it differently. We're not going to take 3 times the amount of bath that we've taken on the previous one. We're very happy with our price, and we're just about to start that. We've actually moved on to site, and so those are the big ones. And then pending, we have a cross-border contract in Mozambique that Civils will go and do. It revolves around some housing. That's about 700 million. We have the letter of intent. Our principal says I can mention it. So, and
any other work in Africa that you're looking at this stage?
Well, again, Angola, where we have operated for a long time in Luanda, was very flat last year. Angola had their own liquidity problems. They had to pay off their infrastructural debt. There's a nice banker contract that we'll be getting hopefully within the next couple of weeks there. So we're looking at Angola performing better than it did last year. We've picked up work in Mozambique on the geotechnical side. Tanzania, it's 35 million, 30 million here, 20 million there. It all adds up, grist to the mill. Yes, but cross-border, if you cross one border, it's quite difficult. If you cross two borders, it's 4 times the difficulty, and that. So we'll be circumspect about it. We can't spread ourselves too thin, but it would be nice to get our civils and pipelines divisions into some of the countries, at least bordering us anyway.
How about public sector work here in South Africa? Is there any sign of that starting to come through? Because there has been a hiatus. Other companies also complaining that they're just not seeing this infrastructure spend happening.
Yeah, look, a number of the contracts that we were relying on have come through for us now. Of course, the one that we're still waiting to hear from, along with some other people, is Western Aqueduct down in KwaZulu-Natal. We're still hopeful about that contract. It's a 860 million rand contract for us. We're 50% joint venture. We believe it's imminent, and we're hoping it's going to come through soon. But yeah, it's very frustrating when these contracts are delayed for this length of time.
And how about getting payments through from the contracts? Are you getting paid in time? Because I know that's also been a problem with many of the construction companies.
We have had some problems, but we haven't got all our eggs in one basket either. So I know some people have experienced problems with payment from Eskom. We haven't. We have had some problems with the Gauteng provincial government, but it was towards the end of a contract that we had when they've sort of run out of budget, and as soon as the new budgets have come through, they have paid us. So yeah, you do get some of those problems. We haven't been too affected by it though.
Well, looking at your order book back up at 1.9 billion rand, what's the prospects looking like for this year? Considering that the industry is still quite tough, do you think you'll go back into profitability this year?
Absolutely, yeah. No, this year we're pretty positive. We're pretty bullish about this year. We think it's going to be much better than it was last year. As I say, we're very happy to get last year behind us. And look, when you take a knock like this, sometimes it's confidence levels coming out of it, and our management team have collectively sort of taken responsibility for these losses, but have come out of it also looking positive and wanting to make up for that going forward. So we think that augurs well for us.
And you've also cancelled your dividend this year, just given the loss you reported. A temporary cancellation. It's
a temporary cancellation, we would like to think, yes. Look, post year end, we also got the cash in from our rights issue, and we've used that to settle the acquisition debt, 178 million. And we had a bit left over, so we'll use that for future growth as well. We have quite aggressive sort of capex going forward, which is all contract specific. If we get this amount of work, we need plant to be able to do it. And believe it or not, it's actually quite difficult to find plant out there and to hire it. It's also cheaper to own your own plant. So, we are great advocates of owning our own plant.